Hello friends, and welcome to my YouTube channel, or welcome back. Today I'm going to be sharing with you everything that I did in preparation for my NASM Certified Personal Training certification exam. I personally did the 7th edition, which is the most recent edition. If you're not aware, it's pretty much an exam that you have to take and pass, get a 70 or higher. There's 120 questions on it. You have 2 hours to complete it. I'm very well aware that just because you have a certification does not mean that you are qualified. Certified does not equal qualified, but this was something that I wanted to do personally, just in the next steps of my fitness journey, and I really just love expanding my knowledge, so it's something that I personally wanted to get. I did the self-study version, so I pretty much was self-guided. I roughly used their recommendations of breaking down the material because pretty much 700 pages, 23 chapters. It's just this like big textbook, and it's kind of daunting in the beginning, especially when you're doing the self-guided version. You're like, it can feel like a lot of information, but if you break it down and have a good like timeline or like game plan, it's a lot more manageable. So I personally did read every single chapter. You can watch tons of other YouTubers videos on them preparing for the exam, and a lot of people will tell you you don't need to read every single chapter. I also took notes on every single chapter. That's just how I study. That's always how I've been as a student. I actually have my notebook here. So like I said, this is just the type of learner that I am. I'm a very like handwritten person. So this entire notebook I filled with material from the textbook. Like I wrote down every single key term, studied from it. I just have a better time remembering if I physically write something down. So if you're also like that, I would take the main takeaways from what I'm about to tell you and definitely write them down. I should start by saying that before anything else, you want to print out the study guide that they give you. So their study guide breaks everything down into sections, and then also breaks it down into chapters and different domains that are going to be focused on in the exam. The material in the textbook is broken up by section, and then different sections are made up by chapters. So section 1 or chapters 1 and 2 make up 10% of the exam. Section 2, chapters 3 and 4 make up 15% of the exam. Chapters 5 through 10 make up 15% of the exam. Chapters 11 to 12 make up 16% of the exam. Chapters 13 through 20 make up 24% of the exam. Chapters 21 and 23 make up 20% of the exam. Use your best judgment on where you should place most of your emphasis. Obviously, the chapters that are going to take up more of the exam questions are where you should probably spend a little bit more time, especially if you don't understand something. At the end of each chapter, there are like module quizzes, and I would take those repeatedly until I got 100%. It was very frustrating where some of these questions were like, I just could not get the right answer no matter what. But I definitely would recommend taking the chapter quizzes at the end of each chapter. There also is a NASM podcast that you can listen to. I would literally just play it like if I was on the Stairmaster or driving to the gym, or like in the shower, like just playing the NASM podcast. They really go over a lot of the material that way if you're more of like an auditory person. There's also already a ton of Quizlets out there. I found myself just like, again, like when I was doing cardio or something, or just when I had a lot of free time, I would just be scrolling through Quizlets, quizzing myself on the material, starring the ones that I didn't really understand and going over the ones that I had a little bit more trouble with. And there also is a chapter summary video at the end of each chapter, which I do recommend watching. At the end of each chapter, there's chapter summary or chapter highlights that really are what you should be focusing on in the chapter. So definitely take a look at those. Some other resources that really helped me was watching other people's YouTube videos on how they studied and how they prepared. And I found a lot of people used mnemonics to help them remember certain overactive and underactive muscles, different postural distortion syndromes, the OPT model, and different things you need to know for like the overhead squat assessment. So something I found across the board when I was studying that was like very heavily stressed was underactive and overactive muscles. It's super important to understand which ones are commonly overactive and which ones are commonly underactive, and how to fix those postural distortions in a client that you have. I found a YouTube video of a girl who really explained her mnemonics, and it kind of resonated with me because I'm very much like, I can memorize things that way. And obviously memorization isn't going to help you when you're in the field, but like if it helps you remember like the mode of understanding to getting you through the concept, I think mnemonics definitely are very helpful. And over here I have the overactive muscles and the underactive muscles for pronation distortion syndrome, lower cross syndrome, and upper cross syndrome. You need to know these. You need to know which ones are underactive and which ones are overactive. I cannot stress that enough. I also found this awesome cheat sheet. I actually only found this like a week before my exam, so it didn't really come in help, but like I want to give you guys all the materials to help because obviously like you want to pass too if you're watching this video. This is like a cheat sheet of the main ideas and main topics pulled from the textbook. From reading the textbook, I can say that like this stuff is very, very important. So I'll have it linked down below if you want to print it out. They also have the overactive and underactive muscles highlighted on this one, so it's super helpful if you cannot seem to remember those. So the same place that I found this breakdown of terms from the book, I also found this one, which looking at someone anteriorly or laterally, what different postural distortions you may see and then how to correct them. So you definitely need to know which mode of correction to use. Another thing to know is the different planes of motion, so sagittal, frontal, and transverse, what flexion and extension is. Definitely know like the general knowledge of type 1 and type 2 muscles and what type of anaerobic and aerobic exercise each of those muscles carry out. Now, across the board from my experience of trying to study for this exam, you are going to hear the OPT model be stressed time and time again. You need to know what the OPT model is, the different phases, the different stages, and pretty much how to program within each phase. And I wrote down how to program for them. And this stuff is all in your textbook, by the way. I just liked to see it all on one page so that I could easily study from it. Wrote down all the acute variables and how many exercises, reps, sets, tempo, and rest, and then how many times a week. So if you're ever programming for a client, like you should know what style of training aligns with their goals and how to program for them. But also know the agonist, synergist, stabilizer, and antagonist, depending on the movement. So which muscles are working and which ones aren't working. Knowing what reciprocal inhibition is, synergistic dominance is, the stages of change, pre-contemplation, contemplation, preparation, action, and maintenance. You need to know all of those. And it's definitely good to know during the overhead squat assessment when you're looking at someone anteriorly and laterally which deviations to look for. The different atriums and ventricles, the right and the left side, and what they do. Really knowing that veins bring blood to the heart, arteries bring the blood away. So again, I hope this helps. I can't really speak for every single exam because from my knowledge, NASM has like a question bank of like 800 questions. They pull 120 for your exam. No two exams ever look the same. And 20 of those 120 questions on your exam are just for research. Like they don't count towards your score of 100. At the end of your exam, you also don't get to see your final score. It just says pass or fail. I personally was someone who took the practice exam over and over again, just to get like mental reps of seeing questions, answering questions, you know, working through the different concepts. But I will say that the actual exam is nothing like the practice exam, and I don't mean that to scare you, but definitely keep taking the practice exam. I took it so many times just because I would study, and then before I closed my book at the end of the night, I would just take it once every time I was done studying, just to like practice going through the exam. Though the practice exam doesn't look exactly like the actual exam, it's definitely, I think, still important to keep testing yourself and just making sure that you at least understand the concepts, because that's pretty much what they're going to test you on, is how can you apply the NASM concept to a potential client. So I would pretty much just stress knowing the NASM terms and what NASM wants you to know. I wouldn't waste too much time on the nutrition topics in the book, because again, they cannot quiz you on that, because as a certified personal trainer, you cannot really give nutrition plans to your clients. Another thing that really helped me, one of my friends on Instagram recommended Show Up Fitness on YouTube, and awesome guy. He pretty much shits on NASM, but like in a way that's like really helpful and pretty much just gets you straight to the point of what you should be focusing on studying for your exam and what they're going to quiz you on. And I will say, I wish I had found his YouTube channel sooner. I was one to read the entire textbook, every single page, write down every key term, whereas I really didn't need to do that for some of the chapters. I could have just focused on like main topics. So I'll have that link down below if you want to check it out. Highly recommend watching his YouTube videos. And then, like I said, the quizzes at the end of each chapter, I took them until I passed with 100%. I never went back and took them. I don't know if that would have helped, but I pretty much just read the chapter, took the quiz, and then moved on to the next. I never went back and took them again. I just made sure I got a 100. I'll also have these cheat sheets linked down below. Like I said, I found them not even like a week before my exam, so I can't really say that they had the biggest impact on my score, but they may help you, so I'm just here to provide you with resources. And then the practice exam that NASM provides you on the site within the course, I was consistently scoring not super high. Like I was scoring like 84, 86, 88. I was consistently scoring like very average on the practice exam, but I wouldn't stress too much about that because, like I said, I don't think the final exam is a exact replica of the practice exam that they give you. So I hope this helps you in any capacity, and I really think that this course is definitely doable in less than the time that they recommend. I think you can definitely do it in like a month or two, just focusing on the core concepts that NASM stresses, knowing it the NASM way. I think this is definitely doable. I know like just getting handed the textbook seems like a daunting task, especially when you are forced to do it self-guided. Like no one is there like holding you accountable in a sense. You kind of have to hold yourself accountable. I made it a priority to study every single weekend and weeknights if I had the time to. Now I work full-time. Finding time to study wasn't always the most convenient. Like I would get home from work and then I would just want to pass out. But I knew I still needed to open my textbook and at least read something, or at least make some progress and keep the knowledge fresh in my mind. Because if you let it slip away, your exam date is going to come before you know it, and then you may not score as well as you wanted to. And then you'll have to pay to retake it again. Try not to let the material slip away from you. I know it's hard to keep yourself accountable on the self-guided journey, but I believe in you. You can do it. So I personally took my exam remotely. I had to get an updated CPR AED certification, which they actually offer within the course. So that was super easy to complete. Got the certification just in time for my exam. You want to have that before your exam. Otherwise they'll make you reschedule it. Don't wait till the last week. My experience with the remote exam, you pretty much log on to something called ProctorU. It's super easy to schedule. They have a tutorial on how to schedule it on their website. You're linked up with a proctor. It's pretty much just a chat feature. You go through like a initial process to where they make sure that you're not cheating. Then you're given 2 hours to complete the exam. I personally was averaging like taking the practice exam in like 20 to 30 minutes. So I didn't think I was gonna need all 2 hours, but I personally took like an hour and 45 minutes just to answer every single question. I even bookmarked a few because you can bookmark questions and then go back at the end and, you know, review your answer. And then I still had time to like go back and check my answer for any questions that I was unsure about. I think I scheduled mine a week before my course expired, so I really was banking on passing the first time. I did. So I will just go over and stress main topics that I think you should focus on. The different stretches, like in a warm-up routine, what they target. I won't lie, this is something that I kind of like skipped over, like the different exercise names and different stretch names, because I was like, I don't really need to know, like, okay, the plow pose is, you know, not really recommended for people because it places a lot of stress on the neck. Like I kind of skipped over a lot of those stretches and different exercise names, but I would not skip over those and take a real good look at the ones that you maybe aren't as familiar with, and just, you know, memorize them a few times through and at least visualize, like look at the pictures that they give you and if, like how long you would hold it for. Is it dynamic, active, or static? Verbal cueing. So definitely know the standard procedures of different exercises and like the NASM way, not like your way. Know them the NASM way, and then different verbal cues that you could give to a client who maybe has like the knee valgus. So just think about those different things, different verbal cueing, because I know like there's not a lot of that in the textbook. So that's why it's really important, I stress, to just understand concepts and visuals that NASM gives you. The exam is going to test your application of the knowledge. Definitely just jot down any heart rate calculation equation, lean body mass equation, calculating BMI, waist to hip ratio. Jot down those equations. The OPT model, again, know every single phase, stage, and what is the main goal of each phase within the OPT model. Again, overactive and underactive postural distortions. You need to know every single overactive and every single underactive muscle. How many times can I say that? Basic nutrition knowledge, which personally being a bodybuilder, like I do kind of have a little bit of a leg up with that stuff, so I didn't focus so much on like the nutrition chapters. They also can't quiz you on nutrition topics because you're not qualified to give clients nutrition. You can just give them general like lifestyle recommendations or modifications. So like how many calories are in a gram of fat, protein, carb, how much is meant to make up your daily intake of each of those macronutrients, stuff like that. Know the different planes of motion, sagittal, frontal, and transverse, and then what exercises fall into those. Also know where you take the pulse, what artery that is, how to calculate resting heart rate, what is considered high blood pressure and what is considered normal blood pressure. Also know what is considered normal BMI, overweight, obese, underweight, etc., all of that stuff. If you're looking to pursue a NASM certification, you're probably someone who's already within the fitness industry. If you have any other questions, you can shoot me a DM on Instagram or comment them down below. I'll reply to every comment, and I hope that you pass your exam.